Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of TXR, a place to kick back, relax, and just talk about gaming. I'm your host, the voice of Alien Reason Invader, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's topics. Hey, before we begin, I'd like to congratulate Aaron Rosen for winning our giveaway for an Exa gaming headset. The panel have this headset, and hey, I happen to like it, so I hope you do too, bud. Now, for the intros. And first, I'd like to introduce our special guest for the evening, a man who certainly knows how to make some noise in a room. Do you hear that? Kaboom, Mr. Newf Nukem. How's it going, bud?
Boom, kaboom, it's Newf in the TXR room. I am super stoked to be here this Sunday night. I'm feeling good. Lots of great topics and a fantastic panel already loaded and ready to go. I mean, how can you beat it? Tim Dog is here. We got Megatron and my old buddy Invader. So, yeah, man, thanks for the invite, guys. Couldn't be a better night and a good time to be here. Just ready to rock and roll. Let's do this.
Yeah, of course, of course. Next, Mr. Tim Dog. How's things at your end, bud?
Good. Love the energy, Newf. Happy to have you here, and ready to talk cloud and talk all this stuff that's transpired in the last 2 weeks, and seems like it's going to be an action-packed show. So, thanks for everyone who's tuning in, and enjoy.
Exactly. And Megatron, how's things at your end?
Everything is getting better on my end. A little rough patches with the family, but it's all good. Newf Nukem, I'm so happy to have you on. I love that energy, as Tim said. So let's get started.
All right. Now, we're still waiting for some people to show up, but we're going to continue on to our first topic, and it's a pretty high-profile one at that. So, Google finally unveiled its foray into gaming by announcing the Google Stadia, a cloud gaming platform that allows gamers to play AAA games via laptops, TVs, phones, and all that jazz via the cloud. Now, there's obviously no console here, but there is a dedicated controller that, in my opinion, it looks pretty similar to the Switch Pro's controller, but they showed off Assassin's Creed Odyssey running on the platform, and it looked pretty cool. They also had devs from id and Tequila Works speaking about it. And while we don't have an exact release date for it, it will supposedly release in 2019 with details to come at E3. So, panel, chime in here. What are all your thoughts on the Google Stadia? Does it impress you? What do you think of it? What's the impression?
I was impressed with it, but that name, though, was the only thing that kind of threw me off. I'm curious about the price, too, the price point and how they're going to do that. But I was impressed by it somewhat. Hope it works. I think that's probably going to be the future in gaming now. Streaming everything, play wherever you want to play, when you want to play it, bathroom, shower, airplane,
toilet,
back alley.
But it is interesting, though. I mean, it is a streaming platform. There's not going to be a dedicated box. It's just going to be, well, through the internet. And don't get me wrong, I like the idea. I mean, now multiple companies have this where they're taking it as more of a platform approach instead of an actual box. But it's just going to be that it's going to be on laptop, desktop, phone, etc. There's not going to be a dedicated platform here. So do you think that's going to be hesitant for, let's say, a traditional console gamer to get into?
To be honest, my take on it is that, and it's, I've been thinking a lot about this. I don't think it's really, in a way we talk about the platform, it's really the service you're using. Like in the future, if 5G actually hits off, I believe that this cloud and what they're doing is a real threat to console gaming overall, because it could be really good. It could be really stable. It could be sub 50 milliseconds latency, where you really can't even tell. And the way it's integrated, the way the Google showed what they showed, I was taken back, put it that way. I went into that show and I thought we were going to have a big laugh. and I came out with thinking about it all week, thinking about it even to upcoming the show. It's the first time speaking on the subject. So platforms, really, what you're provided, that's all up in the air. But what's not up in the air is what you're going to be able to do, and that's play games. And it's play games at a way that is instantaneous. That's that could be social, where you send a link in a DM, just like we sent beforehand to do this podcast, but you do it, and a bunch of gamers are now in a game. The things that they've touted and what they said, they hit everything. They hit everything out of the ballpark.
That performance, they said at what 30 megabytes per second. If I'm not mistaken, 4K 60. I'm like, yeah, that's huge. I mean, do you even see a need for a console at this point? I mean, if you don't, minus the latency, if the latency is enough, at least for me, I mean, I would probably prefer local hardware, but that was big to me. So,
well, it's interesting because if you watch the demo that they had up, it was interesting because I mean, it did look pretty impressive from what I saw. However, what you're talking about, the latency, it felt like there was a little bit of lag, and I don't know. I don't know. I just I wasn't really feeling it towards the end from what I saw. And speaking of games, I think it showed off a bit of Doom Eternal, which I thought looked pretty good. But the thing is, they didn't really talk about having any necessarily like platform exclusive games. From what I saw, I didn't see any like internally developed games.
They said they have first party, right? They did mention that they're building first party, so I'm assuming that's going to be what they make. They talked about what they could make and why they're flexible, why they have an advantage over Xbox and Sony, and there's advantages to what they're doing versus to what Xbox is doing, basically putting Xboxes in the cloud in the rack, and they're racking Xboxes, and you're playing off of that. What they're doing is you're basically playing off of a GPU, and that's scalable, and there's no lowest common denominator. So a developer making a game can theoretically push out whatever their vision is, and that's where it's powerful. Or can be powerful. They also talked about their multiplayer network, where they can have all enclosed network, where basically everything is in the cloud, played in the cloud. Your multiplayer game originates in the cloud, and that can enable. Think of battle royales. We're now 101 to
thousands. I think they said, right? Or
1,000 now. Is this all big talk? They also mentioned 8K 120, and if Microsoft ever even tried that, they would have been laughed at. But they came in and they basically shook the industry, in my opinion, and that through my conversations with people that are very knowledgeable and people that know what they're talking about. This is people. This scared a lot of people, like traditional developers. Probably say, oh wow, the whole thing's changing, because if what they're proposing hits off, everything's going that way, and that means a different way of making games. That means everything that we know now is going to be completely changed. Microsoft is going with a different approach, and they're going to go with that at E3. And we're going to see that vision. I like what Microsoft is pushing out, but I'm not going to be blinded by the potential that I see. I think Stadia is in a position where they can, if they get first party and they get things rolling, they can be real dangerous and throw this whole entire industry on its head.
Now, I find it interesting that, again, there's no box. Like, they're really being brave by just pushing out this streaming service. Like, initially, when I had reports that they're working on a foray into gaming, that it would be like have multiple facets to it, kind of like what Xbox has, PlayStation, and so on. So this is really interesting that they're going straight for the cloud gaming. They're being really brave here with the focus on streaming.
100%.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, man, if anybody dropped the deuce last week after seeing Google's announcement, it had to be the retailers, the GameStops of the world, the Walmarts, because, boy, it's a scary transition that we're looking at here now. You're going to see a lot less retail space out there. You know, obviously, at some point in time, like I said, they could be an industry leader here. There is no question about it. You have to take Google seriously. They got the money. They got the firepower. They've had the infrastructure for quite some time being integrated with YouTube, and YouTube is one of the biggest marketing sources and advertising conglomerates in the world right now. I mean, you think about it, whether you're a hardcore gamer or you're even a lot of casuals out there, like the kids are always on YouTube. But like I said, they've got the inroads to that, instant access to YouTube, streaming, immediately uploading, integration right built in sort of thing. So that's kind of huge. Love the fact, like you said, they've got that instant access to games, no downloading, no updates. Just you want to play a game, hell, you can even click on a game from a link and go straight into the game and purchase it. So, yes, you have to take them seriously, but at the same time, there is no box, there is no hardware. And like I said, they talk a good game right now, but implementing those strategies is easier said than done. Microsoft is obviously a major player, and this is, I think, a big reason why they started to turn their ship around and go in a bit of a different direction too, because they saw this coming. The winds of change. Microsoft wants to be on the cusp of that. Like I said, there's lots of things to like about it. I'm not a big fan of the whole streaming. I think data caps are a huge issue moving forward, and that's something that a lot of people have to deal with. You're looking at universal download speeds. Well, some people today have plenty of bandwidth. There are lots of places, lots of countries, lots of little small cities that don't have access to the kind of bandwidth you're probably going to need to run stuff effectively, at least the 4K type of stuff. So there's still a lot of question marks, but yes, are they a player? Can they make some noise? I think they already have, and they probably will. It's just a matter of what market is going to gravitate and snap this up, because I know from me and a lot of the people I've been talking to, we're not planning to abandon our traditional console experience just yet. So I think Microsoft is safe, at least for the near future.
Absolutely, and they've been kind of future-proofing a lot of ways, as you alluded to. But another interesting thing to take away from this event is that Jade Raymond, the former head of Ubisoft Toronto and EA Motive, she was announced as the head of the Stadia gaming division. Now, do you guys think that she's a good pick for Google? Is she a good pickup? She's an industry veteran. How do you guys feel about that?
I have no clue. Honestly, don't even know the person, so but I hope she is for the betterment of gaming. So,
well, I know a lot of people had talked about her like possibly be picked up by Microsoft, but it turns out Google snatched her up. Obviously, they have an ex-Microsoft person in Phil Harrison, who is responsible for the Xbox European studios way back when. So they have a lot of key figures there. So obviously they're not playing around.
No, from what I've heard, to people I've talked to, and I had known actually about that. It wasn't really announced, I don't think, but I think somebody slipped to me about this. They're very impressed with the industry is really impressed with her. So put it this way, they think that she's going to do a good job, and she's gonna be going up against like Matt Booty pretty much. She is the Matt Booty of Google. I think that she's gonna build a big first party, and like I said, it's very interesting to see what they can do. Now, one of the things that is kind of strange, what I thought is that their system seems to be Linux based. So I don't know if that's gonna throw a couple of devs off. I do think that Microsoft is in a position of strength here, and if they keep forward to what they're doing, basically growing 15%. They grew 15% just from the footprint last year. That's not including acquisitions. Another 15% is looked to be put on as far as adding to studios that they already have. They supposedly have 3 studios rumored to be acquired. If they stay on this path, they can, they're going to be in a position of power, because they do have the infrastructure. They have Xbox Live. They have the game catalog, and they have familiarity where, you know, if I'm playing a game, you know, and I want to, you know, buy that game and I want to play it on xCloud, I could do that, and I have 700 other games that I could possibly play. Nobody's gonna start over. So, or this, you know, Google's coming straight, you know, wet behind the ears, you know, head down, you know, going full at it. It's just going to be if they can actually produce their games and they could put something out there where, you know, it entices people. One of the things that Newf talked about was YouTube, and I just an example about how we're doing this podcast. I believe that, and I don't think that this is not where Microsoft is really good at, but Google is, and other things like Discord is. You know, we could play a game and we could set it up and we can make money off of it just by sending links through a browser on Twitter and a DM. And I think that that's what YouTube can offer too. And especially with making money, if you can start making money where you do like a Monday gameplay, you know, group up, and it's basically a podcast, but everyone's playing games and you know, it's a different type of take, and it's all done via this Stadia. You know, have Stadia partners and that type of stuff, kind of like a, you know, addition to what they have. I see a lot of potential there, you know. So it's just so interesting to me. There's so many things that are going on and everything's going around. E3 is going to be absolutely awesome. Google's going to be there, it sounds like, and we know Xbox is going to be there. So it's going to be really, really awesome to hear what's going on.
Now, with using Linux, though, really quick, how does that go with the, you know, the software side of things in programming? Does it make it difficult, you know, if you wanted to make a multi-plat for Stadia and Xbox, and then they're not using DX12, they're using something else, right? What's the other?
Yeah.
The CPU,
Vulkan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're using Vulkan. You know, I'm not a developer, but you know, obviously Linux is not the, you know, preferred choice right now in the industry. It's, you know, it's everything else, but it's used in some applications, I'm sure. And I've heard that Unix or Linux always gives you more, you know, a little more. You could do a little bit more. It's more in you know, it gives you ability to do things more in depth. So maybe that's what they're planning on. You know, like I said, they're saying 1,000 player battle royales. Imagine playing a game that's 1,000 player battle royale. So it's interesting, but who's really doing it in the industry? If they have people doing it, or people are just learning to do it, I'm sure that that Google's gonna, you know, is gonna be there to help them, and they'll have tools developed.
El Boogie brought up a good thing in the chat too, and this is going to be one of the important factors for Google, and that is the price points, which they basically avoided and didn't really give any firm and you know, analysis on what sort of plan they are going to come out. If they're going to go with a subscription-based service, similar to Game Pass, or they're just going to have some sort of store set up where you basically go in and buy your games. And then the other side of the coin, outside of price, they're going to need a very competitive price, which they obviously can certainly have because they don't have any hardware associated with the buy-in or the entry level. Let me just say the door is open, right? People can walk right in. Then it's just a matter of how they competitively put themselves out there in price. But then outside of the price too, you know, how do they, in order for their market to be successful, I think they're going to need to capture a lot of hardcore gamers, the people that have really built the industry sort of thing, you know, get them on board. And a lot of us are traditionalists. Like I said, we like our, you know, Xbox, PlayStation, stuff like that. So how do they convince those people to get on board? If you're an Assassin's Creed fan, well, we know that Assassin's Creed is already on, you know, Xbox and PlayStation. So why do you want to play Assassin's Creed on the Google-based platform, especially if the prices are the same? What benefits are there to going to the streaming outside of instant access, and again, not having the hardware? These are some of the questions I have. How can they entice gamers like me, and maybe most of this panel, that their platform is a viable option to the competitors?
It sounds like it's going to be price. You know, if it's going to be low enough to pull me out of my ecosystem where all my friends are, all my games are. I'm already I have over 700 something Xbox games. So it's going to be price. You know, they'll probably wait until after E3 to see what Microsoft does with their announcements and, you know, see if they give their price point. But they're smart too. Everyone's smart. Everyone's going to be watching everybody.
Well,
you know, Sony's going to be watching, and it's
I think that Microsoft's gonna. My opinion is that they're gonna bundle it with Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, you might have a tiered thing where if you want to take your games wherever you want, you pay $13.99 a month. If you want just standard Game Pass, you pay the standard fee of $9.99. There might be a tiered thing there, but I think the pricing is another place that Microsoft is gonna have an advantage. I think because they're going to tie it into what they already have, and I don't think it's going to be that much more. They're in a position where they really could do something crazy, like possibly, off, take that paywall, multiplayer paywall off, and just they could do something really creative, in my opinion, with this. Because if I said this, I think the last time, it's not great if you're going to have three services, and you're not gonna you have to choose between them. If they can somehow bundle it and make it a part of something else and keep it cheap, that's going to be a huge advantage. In my opinion, I think Google is going to be fairly priced, but I think that it's something that Microsoft has to beat because they have that advantage of there. They have the subscription services already in place.
What if? Wow, this is just me hypothetically thinking. What if somehow it worked out where Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox all came together and decided to say, we'll just it'll be us against Google.
Yeah, right.
That'll be like.
Yeah, right.
And
apologies for my tardiness, gentlemen.
I'm just saying, but I think since you were joining in, I'll ask that question. But you have to say something about it. So, they come in like the three-headed dragon, Ghidra there, and try to tackle this beast that's coming about with Google. I mean, everyone's got their Android phones, and there's some advantages to where they're coming in at, right? You never know. I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there.
They, you know what? In my opinion, and obviously, I'm not that very. I'm not tech savvy as most people, but I don't think they really have the infrastructure when it comes to the games. Yeah, they have the cloud and all that, but I don't think they really have the game studios and stuff that would. They'd have to put a lot of bread out there for it to line up. Quickly. Now, maybe, in a few years they might have that structure, in place, but I don't think right off the bat.
Well, they have the numbers though, right? I mean, it's the number game, so they can say, hey, well, we have all these people that are, already subscribed to YouTube that are automatically in our corner that we can consider as now maybe gamers, right?
Well, when it all comes down to it, obviously it's going to be money. And we know Google got bread; they got a lot of money to waste. So, we're just going to have to wait and see.
They can take this to a real high stakes type deal. Google has that type of money. They can put pressure on everyone. So, and I think Microsoft could possibly match it, but who knows?
Do they want to? I doubt they want to. Because they already got their infrastructure in place,
right? But if they can take it to a different level if they want to, and I kind of feel the way they're talking, they're going for broke with this. I mean, it's been a lot of talk, and like Newf said, and Invader, you got to show me some of this stuff. A lot of it's all big talk. You didn't talk
hypothetical, right?
Hypotheticals.
Well, obviously, Microsoft is kind of worried. Like there's reports that the Xbox Maverick, supposedly the discless all streaming console, coming out in May. So, and with Google's announcements, like they really need to fire up what they're doing. Otherwise, things are going to get pretty heated. You know, they could have been caught. Now it's going to be interesting to see what everybody does with regards to the Google just jumping in now.
Right.
E3 is going to be very telling, especially if Google announces exclusives and, you know, streaming exclusives, price point. I mean, if it's really competitive price point, it's just a subscription.
Well, you know, no,
I'm sorry about that. My daughter is literally walking around
she
with
wants
a potato,
put her on the mic. She wants to talk.
and a spatula, and she wants to go to
the
bed.
Google Cloud, yeah.
This was a validation for Phil and his team. I mean, I remember talking to Phil about 2.5 years ago, and he kept talking about Tencent, and he kept talking about Google. And
Well, yeah. Let me interrupt real quick because everyone's talking about Sony's beating Microsoft and this and that, and when it comes to Phil, I don't think he was really worried about Sony. He's more worried about Google.
I always remember him saying, he says, you know, because like, you know, we were talking about this, talking about MPDs, or I was obviously hitting him with a DM and this and that. I always remember him saying, it's so much going to be so much bigger than that next generation. It's not going to be console versus console. It's not going to be Sony versus Xbox. It's going to be, and I remember he said Google, Tencent, Amazon. And he listed like 4 things. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, this guy, this is crazy what he's saying. And sure enough, he was right. And that's why when, you know, it was announced and he sent his letter out to his team that this was, you know, it was kind of like validation for his vision 2 years ago. So, you know, Phil always talks about team and this and that, but I have to say he's seen this vision of his really early. And that's, you know, they pushed xCloud, and that's why they pushed Game Pass. And he kind of preemptively saw this, and he has Xbox in great position to counter them because of what we talked about, the library that they have, Xbox
Game
Live,
Studios,
Game Studios, the first party, and they are rolling right now. And the other guys just starting out with a lot of big promises, but as we know, it's all about what's the latest you've given me.
Yeah, well, it's going to come down to who has the best games as a service platform eventually. That's what we're looking at. Then we're going to be talking about who has the least amount of entry level or barriers to get gamers on board, certainly to draw in new audiences. There's still, like I said, millions upon millions of untapped dollars out there in the games market. That sort of thing. And I think these are the people that a lot of the companies are trying to snag in. You know, you get a new gamer now, you maybe get a new gamer for life, right? That's how it is. We were weaned on Nintendo, and we spent millions over the years, or millions, but you know what I mean? So this is what it is. You capture this new audience, you get these cell phone generation kids out there now, and games all over the place, and they're not really too keen or not too tuned into, oh my god, I need to have an Xbox or a PlayStation. They just want to play games. So that's the untapped market, I think, that where they're trying to head to, right? They're trying to
hey, remember just a couple years ago how games of service was like an expletive, and people were like, "Oh no, don't talk about that." And now that's what like the industry's chasing, games as a service.
So what do you guys? What do you guys think? How is everyone else going to compete? How do you think Nintendo is going to compete and Sony? You guys, I mean, it's all.
I honestly think Nintendo and Microsoft are kind of linking up a little bit.
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to before. That's why.
But you mentioned Sony as well. I doubt that'll ever happen. You know, Sony, they're too proud of a company. They'll sink or swim on their own ideas.
100%. Sony's never going to be a partner with all of this. I think when you look at Sony, this is kind of just showing where the tech giant that Microsoft and Google is. It's like they built the cloud for other reasons, and they have obviously attached gaming with it. This level is something that Sony couldn't build, so they don't have the infrastructure. It's like I asked the same question to somebody, and they said they don't have the infrastructure. They have, they rack PS3s and PS4s in server racks, and that's very expensive. And they don't have the tie-in that obviously Google and Microsoft has. And you look at PSN now. I looked at PSN now today. They're not even offering really new games at all. Like they have NBA 2K18, on the cover, or to buy it is Red Dead Redemption, a backwards compatibility game that you're streaming. They're just way behind in this, and I just kind of think that I think they're a little alarmed, but I don't know what they could do. I don't think that they can build a cloud in 5 years or 3 years, and I don't think that they can keep up. So they're gonna probably do what they've been doing and just hope that the market doesn't change over that much.
It seems like a cloud framework, it takes like 10 years to build.
They may have to partner with somebody, man. If you're trying to stay afloat, you're running a company, your back's up against the wall. That's why I don't think it rules out.
Well, who would they do? Amazon's going to do it themselves too.
Yeah.
Amazon's, is Amazon going to help them out when they're doing the same thing? They're going to say no, probably.
Hey, the DICE, all three of those guys on stage, maybe, they were talking a little something. I don't know, but I'm just thinking.
See, I think Sony, honestly, Sony's take on this is we're just going to roll the dice and see what happens here.
Yeah.
Well, they're relying on what they have right now, pretty much.
Which is pretty good. I mean, I don't know about the cloud service, but the game side of things, they're good. As far as, they're.
And people say that's all that matters, and there's some truth to that, but there's also some truth to we are evolving. And if I could take my gaming catalog and 700 games that I own, and I can, on my lunch, just connect the controller to the thing. What's so wrong about that?
Well, the differentiating factor is, and why Sony doesn't seem to be taking this in the same stride as the competitors, is that Sony has, from a console standpoint, from a traditional gaming standpoint, they have been a market leader for years now, and they have a strong presence across the globe. They're not just strong in various territories. Overall, they're a strong company, and that's why they can tout, their install base is, like I said, closing at 100 million now with PlayStation. I suspect by the time PlayStation 5 comes out, that number is still going to probably continue to grow. I don't see the PlayStation 5 sort of tinkering off. I think as long as they're competitively priced with a decent hardware out of the box and backwards compat built in, I think the PlayStation fans who jumped on board a PS4, that's where they're ultimately heading. I think is back to PlayStation 5. I don't think they're too worried about what Xbox or Google or anybody else is doing at this point in time, and they're still going to make a lot of money. They're at the end of the day, though, they're probably not going to rake in as much dough as Xbox or Google may ultimately do. If they're positioned strongly, because they seem to be fine. That is the thing, right? Not everybody can be number one in the industry. At some point, you've got to be okay with being number 2 or number 3, as long as you're in the the black
conversation.
Conversation. You're still making money. You're not 100% money. That's the way to look at the burger joints out there. There's only one number one. It doesn't mean you got to have the best burger. You just got to be in more places than the competitors to win sometimes. That's all it takes. That's why McDonald's is huge, not because they got better food, just because they're cheap, they're fast, and they're fucking pretty much everywhere but your mother's vagina. So that's how they get it done. So Sony can kind of do the similar thing.
Yeah, they can sit back.
Yeah, Nintendo's the anomaly, guys. Nintendo's the one I worry the most about, because, look, let's call a spade a spade. They struck lightning in a bottle with Switch, but we know their online is far behind and far inferior to PlayStation Network or Xbox Live. I think they're going to be behind Google as well. So Nintendo's the one I'm worried about. When they make their next transition, how are they going to do it? Are they just going to be modifying Switches at this point? Like, what is their game plan for the long term?
Now, they are working on some hardware, aren't they? Didn't they say there was something or rumors?
Yeah, the OLED, like you said, modifying the hardware.
Yeah,
and I think he nailed it right on the button right there. I think that they're also looking at Microsoft as a potential partner in a way where, this whole thing with, Cuphead and all these games going to Switch was actually Xbox's idea.
It's coming. It's coming. I think it's coming.
I think Xbox is really gunning to push its cloud service as an app on their on their
platform,
the Switch, because they have the inputs, they have the controller. And be honest, listen, there's not going to be a better place to play xCloud pretty much than your Switch. The Switch, because it has everything built in for you. It's just button remapping. You know, it's going to be better than probably a tablet. You know, it'll be right in your hands. And I think Nintendo's getting a little bit of cold feet here because, you know, Microsoft's like, hey, let us in. You know, you don't want your customers, you know, going on xCloud buying games off of the Microsoft store just to play them on your, you know, just to buy your things. You want your gamers to buy your games. So I think Nintendo has the cold feet, and I think that it's been close to being done, but this is what Microsoft really wants.
Let me put it in perspective for you guys. Nintendo's the only company that went back to cartridges.
Yeah.
Well, hey, cartridges have come along a long way since like 10 years ago.
Modified SD cards, but yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? Do you guys think eventually Game Pass is going to be on Switch?
I think
well,
so.
xCloud is going to be on Switch.
It
Have you
seems
seen
like
those
that's
Game
the way
Pass
it's
games,
going.
by the way? It's a pretty good announcement with a lot of things, what they
Yes.
announced with that looks good. But I mean, who knows?
See,
I think they're going to need it.
They're improving it all the time.
Game Pass would make Nintendo stay relevant for a much, much longer period of time, because no longer then will you just be confined to the only thing that's saving Nintendo's ass are their first-party games, right? Thank God they've got strong first-party, because their hardware and the rest of it certainly isn't doing no favors. And I don't know, does anybody even know the numbers of third-party software? Like if anybody's actually killing it out there? Because I'm not hearing much numbers. I'm hearing Nintendo's doing well, but I mean, are people out running out the door to buy Doom and Wolfenstein and Skyrim and all those games that come out? I mean, yeah, they do better than a lot of others. All I'm seeing right now is Nintendo Switch has become their freaking the garbage box for Nintendo for indie titles, because every time I turn around, there's about 100 of them.
We should see I wonder how Cuphead should do well, right?
Oh, Cuphead will do well.
It'll do well, judging by, I mean, if you look at the indies that are doing well on there, like Hollow Knight, for example, then yeah, definitely Cuphead I can definitely foresee it doing pretty well. But,
did they announce this is going to be a digital? Is Cuphead going to be digital, or is it going to be a physical? Are they going to have a physical cartridge?
It's going to be digital, I would say.
Okay.
I'm assuming digital, at least digital at first. That's all I know about at this moment. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a physical at some point.
Yeah, it seems like this is just going to be a big test drive for, you know, between the two companies.
See if these on the Switch.
Yeah. See, I think all that stuff. Listen, Invader, you're for it, right? Because I remember when I told you in the DM when we were talking about it, and you were like, "Oh, that's disappointing," because I said that it was off, because you know I had gotten some, you know, a little tip that the Switch, you know, the deal that was supposedly going down and fell through. And,
well,
you know,
yeah,
you
no,
were like, well. You because I remember you were like, oh well, I hope they can get it, or you were taken back that you let that it was called off.
Well, I was surprised because judging, like, they've been acting so friendly, both Microsoft and Nintendo, and I thought it would make a lot of sense from Microsoft's perspective, because they're this big software company. Obviously, they seem to have the mindset right now where, hey, we don't care where our software is, just as long as you guys play it, buy it, that's fine with us. You guys consume it. Game Pass on Switch makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of games that I could see on there making a lot of sense. Cuphead makes a lot of sense. Ori in the Blind Forest.
Ori would be big, yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
And yeah, there's all kinds of other games. I mean, even games that were formerly once Xbox exclusive, like for example, Splosion Man. It's on Switch, or Mrs. Splosion Man. But there's a lot of games on there, a lot of like cartoony, family-friendly games that would make a lot of sense. So I can totally see why Microsoft would want to put it on there. And then just investing in the IPs and hoping that the IPs get enough exposure and it does well, because that's good for the brand image.
I wouldn't mind seeing some Switch games on my being able to play them on my Xbox. I wouldn't mind playing a little Mario.
Well, see, that's a tricky situation. Does it go in return? You know, in reverse?
Well, I think in their return is, hey, let us put xCloud on your system. I think that's what Microsoft in the end really wants. I don't think that they want Mario. I mean, they would like to, but I don't think Nintendo's going to offer that. But I do think that the pushback is, hey, you can use us for your Game Pass, and it benefits both.
But even if it's a one-sided partnership, isn't it kind of just make it look like Xbox is desperate? Like, please take our stuff on your system, please. We need you. Like, we're relying on you.
The Switch, by getting your stuff on the Switch, it's huge for Xbox, right? Because that gets them access to markets where traditionally the Xbox hardware has not penetrated. So, like, right, boom, instant access to the Japanese market. Instant access, boom! All of a sudden, you've got how many customers? Switch is selling like crazy in Japan, right? In the Asian markets, Xbox, obviously, we know is not. So how do you, if you can't beat them, join them? That's the old saying, right? So there we go. We get on Nintendo, boom, baby! We just start making some donero in Japan because now we got our shit on Nintendo over there.
That's a huge point.
Absolutely,
it's the Trojan horse, baby. That's what it is. Boom.
Great point.
Now, since we're basically on to the next topic,
I told you it was going to take an hour.
No, exactly. But since we're on the next topic, we're basically into it. So it looks like obviously Cuphead is making its way onto the Nintendo Switch, and during Nintendo's Indie Showcase recently, a bunch of new games were making their way to the Switch, including Cuphead, as we mentioned. Now, it's interesting that Nintendo had thanked Studio MDHR and, as they said, our friends at Microsoft. So that's interesting, guys, how they worded that. Now, do you guys think that this is like them showing a growing partnership between Microsoft and Nintendo? And do you think that we'll see more of their exclusives go over to the Switch? Does this make sense?
Now, real quick, though, who owns that IP? Like, MDR owns it, or how does that work? Is it marketing? Like,
MDR owns it, but Microsoft, the one has to approve it. Publishing rights, as far as I know, they get the first say into where it goes. And Microsoft was apparently all gun ho. They're actually Microsoft was the one who approached Nintendo about it. Apparently,
good for them. They made a hell of a great game. Good for them. More money.
You've seen Xbox threw all kinds of money at them to make the game even bigger than what they initially anticipated or even thought of.
Well, it's interesting because I remember playing it at this local fan expo like back in like 2015, 2016, and it was a way different game than how it initially launched. It was much smaller. Everything was different.
It was all boss battles. Remember?
It was all boss battles, yeah. And don't get me wrong, there were some things that changed, like that stayed the same. But man, the amount of stuff that they put in there, like just the quality and the animations and what they added in. I mean, sure, those like run and gun levels, they're okay, but like, no, you could really see the effort that they put into the game, and that extra time helped out. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have played Cuphead personally, but to me, it's one of my favorite games this generation. I love the art style. It's just interesting that Microsoft would push for this and that they're so friendly with Nintendo. Do you guys think of this as a growing relationship with the brand?
Well, that's what I said just a few minutes ago. I think this is like a stepping stone just to see exactly how it's going to work. If it's going to be, big for both, obviously Ori's going to be there, Super Lucky Tail and whatever you have, they're all going to eventually come over. And then we'll start seeing Game Pass over there.
It's the future, man. They're gonna join forces. I see it. They're gonna be friends.
But see, that's the thing. But that's why I want to know is it could just be one sided, like only Xbox games on the Switch. What about Nintendo games on the Xbox?
Well,
I'd like to see it build back and forth. If it's going to be a partnership, I want to see a true partnership.
Why can't we be friends?
The
kumbayas and all that, yeah.
I think at the end of the day that it'll be a two-way street. I don't think that it's going to end just with it going one way. I think just Microsoft, if they can get their xCloud or Game Pass on the device, that'll be enough for them. As great point by Newf about how that device is in markets that they struggled in. I mean, it kind of
Get
blows my
exposed to
mind.
that Japanese market, man, because ain't nothing happening over
and
there.
other markets too. But it kind of blows my mind though that let's say you buy the new Call of Duty and you want to play with live functionality, and you're actually on Xbox Live on Switch,
60 frames per second, right? Because what's happening now with that?
You'd be streaming off of it. It wouldn't be done natively on the device. It'd be streamed, and as we learned, streaming, can be quite effective. And while they're talking about this stuff working seamlessly, both Google and Microsoft, so why wouldn't it work? You just need, if you have a good internet connection to the Switch, you're playing Call of Duty on a Switch that's not played on Nintendo. It kind of blows my mind, but I can see it.
It does make sense because they did something with Fortnite, right? But they're allowing you to. I mean, it's crossplay, but now they're partially because what happens is now you have an advantage because Microsoft's running at 60 frames per second, and where the Switch, you're playing that game and it's only going at 30.
Right.
And now there was some announcement I heard just a day or two ago. Did anyone catch up on that? Pick up on that? It was just they're making it now so you can choose whether you want to play with someone that's an Xbox as opposed to just throwing everybody on the same server.
Yeah, I heard that.
So the update,
I mean, but if you're going to use the xCloud, then you won't have to even worry about that anymore, right?
Yeah,
so that's another advantage.
It's another question too, like the real specifics of the way it gets down. But again, like I said, I do think that Nintendo might have a little trepidation there with going full bore in, and I think that's why you kind of see we've seen the delay, or we didn't see them at it was at GDC, but I thought it would be much more, in the panel and stuff like that, and specifically targeting it. But it is what it is. It's just such a crazy time, and also the crossplay. That's another thing that comes back. Southbound, because Xbox really wants the crossplay, and Nintendo's open to it. So whatever games that they can get on the Switch, and they can have crossplay. Is a big thing. Microsoft's pushing crossplay very hard as well.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of new indies, it looks like Microsoft is going to take a page right out of Nintendo's playbook, and they announced the ID at Xbox Game Pass, and it'll be premiering March 26th. And this stream will showcase upcoming indie titles coming to Xbox Game Pass in the future. Now, we're supposed to be getting new reveals, developer discussions, and gameplay. So, guys, what are your thoughts on this new indie dev spotlight? Do you think Game Pass is becoming very attractive to indie developers now?
It has to. It has to be. I mean, you see, what game was it that it was on Game Pass, and the developer was like, man, we wouldn't have been in a quarter of systems people wouldn't have bought compared to what it was on Game Pass. So I mean, it's very attractive for any publisher or developer to even think about or even consider. I mean, look, you got Just Cause 4. That game came out like 2 weeks prior to coming on Game Pass.
Yeah.
I mean that has to be a sign that even more titles are to come.
Well, even Shadow of the Tomb Raider was announced pretty early on too, just after a couple of months, you could say, and that's another Square Enix game, Just Cause and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. But like even just for the smaller, like really small devs, like do you think it's really appealing for a very small dev to you don't have a huge AAA budget? Do you think it's really appealing for them to get into Game Pass and they have access to millions of like people playing their game right off the bat?
Well, yeah, I'll just say that the reason this works really well, because most of the indie developers are relatively new. Many of them have one game, less than like 3 or 4 games under the belt, the majority of them. So the best thing that you can have as an indie developer is exposure. right? I mean, if nobody's playing your game, nobody's talking about your game, you're not making money from your game. So at the end of the day, that's why you see a lot of these devs, even now, like between Steam and you see all the time on Twitter, they're always giving out codes, because exposure is where it's at, man. You get a game in the hands of a popular YouTuber and boom, all of a sudden you've sold extra copies. This is what Game Pass does. It allows gamers to take risk without the financial risk, you know, the burdens of dumping the money on it. If it's in Game Pass, people will be like, yeah, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And then all of a sudden you like it, boom, you spread the word, it gets out there, people start streaming it, boom, exposure. That's how it goes. That's ultimately at the end of the day. If it doesn't bode really well for the game that they just put on, it probably means big business for the second game that they may put out, right? You know what I mean? So like that's how it works. Because
well,
then
it's the same idea from Game of Gold. You know, how many developers, you know, that the game came out and went straight to Games of Gold. You know, so instead of selling it, they you know, hey, you know, Xbox cut us a check. We don't have to deal with, you know, I mean, they could sell 10 copies. You never know. You know, Xbox gives them one check and boom, blam, you know, it's done. So I think it's good.
Well, this one sounds pretty cool. Like they're gonna dive into games that we already know about, like Void Bastards that was showing off at I think it was last E3 if I'm not mistaken. Supermarket Shriek. After Party, which is done by the Oxenfree developer Night School Studio, and I think they're doing a bit of a behind-the-scene look at that studio in the game. So they got some interesting stuff going on for this first stream of this Xbox indie stream, and I think it would be very beneficial to these indie devs. I mean, just to get the attention from a big platform holder like Microsoft, and just to be able to be on their service, I should say. I don't know if it would be day in, day one on Game Pass, but I mean, just the thought of if you're a small dev being in that service and having access to all those consumers, I mean, I'd be pretty excited at that, just to be able to, you know, play, get people to play your game and get the attention.
Right. Okay. Well, in the same token, yeah, Timmy, is that you? Hey, no, but seriously. Hey, going back to that, I mean, how many games 2 weeks out after they come out, they go half price? You know what I mean? So if they're gonna go half price, they're losing money right there. Might as well go on Game Pass after, you know, the first month or whatever, and you know, eliminate all the losing the profits from there.
Get that boom blam money, right?
Well, that's right, boom blam. That's
they say a game that goes into Game Pass gets 6 times the exposure and play versus what it would get if it wasn't. Now,
I mean, obviously, we need to know what kind of, you know, royalties or what kind of dividends they actually get for being on Game Pass.
I don't know. I don't know how that all works out, but you know, I think if a game's good, it's going to sell. Like, you know, people, you know, they talked about Sea of Thieves and stuff like that, and they said, "Oh, well, Game Pass was the only reason why I was successful." It was not true. Sea of Thieves still sold. And you know, obviously it wasn't critically acclaimed, but you know, it had its issues.
Yeah, we know all the detractors,
right? But it actually was. It sold. But a game like Crackdown, which everyone kind of got the message on it, didn't sell. So I do think that it still follows. If your game is good or it's going to be playable, it's going to be fun, it's going to sell. But if it's not, you know, I just feel like it's not going to sell. So Game Pass, I think, can sometimes be a positive in that aspect. But overall, it does get your game more exposure, more looks. And, you know, they say 6 times more looks, and they say sometimes you can get more sales, too.
Now, sorry, Newf, go ahead.
No. Just no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add to say that, you know, this has a very Nintendo touch to it because of the way that Nintendo does its indie directs, or nindies, as you want to call it. And to me, it feels like there's a bit of influence there. Obviously, Microsoft a couple of months ago picked up a guy named Damon Baker. He was an executive over at Nintendo, and he was very influential in helping Nintendo get those, like, a lot of third party, like indie titles onto the platform and showcasing them and just really bringing high profile indie titles just onto the system. So I'm just, the whole timing of this, like, to me, it just feels like his influence is already being felt. You can kind of just see it in the DNA of this, and I'm actually really happy to see this. To me, this is a really good thing going forward, just to highlight more games going forward. And really, you don't get to see a lot of indie spotlights on Xbox anymore, in my opinion. You used to have the Summer of Arcade, Winter of Arcade, and so on. They haven't done that in a long time. So this is, in a way, I won't say it's exactly the same, but it's bringing it back.
Yeah, but the idea at Xbox program is a lot bigger than those, you know, summer, spring, whatever promotions they had going on. Now it's like, you know, it's like their own like studio publishing situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I honestly think the idea at Xbox now is much better.
I have to say, yeah. Like,
you know,
I've
said this a million times. You know, yeah, at the start of this generation, everybody hated on Xbox because 360 was such a nightmare. And
their indie support, we had no indie support,
right? And they've bent over backwards since then. You know,
yeah, they're actually pushing indies like crazy. You know, I remember if you remember the beginning of the gen, everyone was saying, "Oh, Sony's paving the way for independent developers." And Microsoft is getting all types of heat because of their policies and this and that a long time ago. But man, they have pushed the indie initiative, and that's, you know, Chris Charla,
yep,
awesome.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
This and this guy Baker, like you said, I totally agree with you. This has him written all over it, and it's a smart move. And, you know, it's just going, like, you know, I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty safe to be positive about Xbox in a lot of ways, and stuff like this is kind of what makes me feel that way. It's like you see a guy that gets hired, and everyone was like talking about him, and then you kind of now see his fingerprints on it, and it makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? The more you can find that diamond in the rough. There, you know, certain independent games just come out of nowhere and they're beloved. So this is just going to be more of a way to see it with the addition of Game Pass too and everything that's going on. I think that if you're an independent developer, you got to take a long, hard look at, you know, Microsoft and Xbox to develop your game on if you can have a choice.
Exactly. But now on to some other news, and this is very interesting and very coincidental. Sony is now joining Microsoft and Nintendo by announcing a new PlayStation platform show called State of Play, and that's starting on March 25th, and it will give updates and announcements from the world of PlayStation. The first show will have showcasing upcoming PS4 and VR games, new trailers, and game footage. So this sounds very akin to me to Nintendo Direct and Inside Xbox. Now, do you guys think this is a good move on Sony, considering they won't be at E3 this year, and it just may be a good way to help ease the information, so on, since they won't have a big announcement?
I mean, all of a sudden now they have something to say, but they have nothing to show at E3. I mean.
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, if it works, I mean, everyone's doing it. So,
well, it's interesting that they do that because they did state very early on that they won't be at this conference. They won't do that. Like, they weren't at Gamescom, for what I remember. They didn't.
PSX are canceled.
Exactly.
Well, I guess it's showing it, as long as they have a pulse, you know. So, like, let me stop poking out.
I mean, it would be a good way to showcase, for example, what Microsoft's doing and what Nintendo's doing, and whatever indie titles they want to spotlight, for example, and then, you know, bits and pieces of their big games coming up, but not necessarily anything like really new. I mean, they do state that there will be some unannounced stuff, but I mean, I guess this kind of takes the weight off of what they could have had at an E3 or at a separate event, but it breaks it up.
Sorry, ma'am, if that's what happens when Mark Cerny has to go in front of the boardroom to convince the executives of the rapid pack math. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Well, it's just interesting that they choose to do this State of Play. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad move, but it is interesting considering what the other big publishers, the big console makers are doing, and they have been relatively silent. You know, they haven't been doing very much with announcements, and they're relying on their already announced games from like 2 or 3 years ago. So it is a very interesting move to see them do this. Maybe it sort of takes the pressure off of them in some aspects from doing announcements, but I do find it interesting that they are kind of doing this at the end of March. I don't know how often they will be doing this state of play. From the sounds of it during their announcement, it's going to be a reoccurring thing like an Inside Xbox, but time will tell. But it is interesting that they choose to have this state of play. And honestly, guys, like, do you think that they'll have a big announcement like sometime later in the year, or they just like kind of
what can they announce? They have just, I mean, the big announcement would be what if the
like showing gameplay,
hardware side of things, right? The new PlayStation 5. What else could they announce?
Well, it could be little things that like VR titles, small VR titles they could show off, indies, like whatever devs they have. Like they have special deals with marketing deals for whatever third-party games, big AAA third-party. You never know, but you know, stuff that they could have saved for something in June, but they just decided to. Yeah, oh, hey, we're not going to be at E3 this year, so we're going to put our chips into this show. We can sort of spread it out so it doesn't look too bad at us come around E3.
Absolutely.
Right, they could have a show at E3. My opinion on the whole situation is just I wonder how everyone's gonna perceive it, because whenever Inside Xbox comes out, it's considered like an E3 event, and people want all these huge announcements, and you're obviously not going to get those type of announcements, and still they get a ton of pressure on them. So, with no E3, I think that you have to say Sony has a little bit of pressure on them to, announce something or,
yeah, but remember
they always get the
benefit of
the doubt. A lot of pressure, if you ask. They got a ton of pressure. They better
their response is like, "Whoa, we had 3 game of the year candidates, God of War, all these games we showed them," which they did. But the problem is that they really went for all at that E3, and then the PSX with The Last of Us 2. They basically announced 3 years out, and they, it worked for them because it got people buzzed about it. And at that point, Microsoft hit a lull in their game development, game creation, and that was, a point where Microsoft was not doing anything in game creation, and they hit them at the right time. But right now, they announced everything 3 years ago, and they showed a lot really early, and that was to basically keep their crazy lead and expand upon it, and it worked. But at this point, if I'm a Sony fan, I'm probably still happy, but you still gotta want some announcements, and for them just to show up at E3 to me is kind of a real slap in the face of a fan, in my opinion. And I think that they could have announced something. I'm sure that it couldn't have been, the biggest announcements, but they should have had a presence. And
Sony's strategy worked, right? Because they went all in heavy on the years of Microsoft was kind of thinning out from a software perspective, and they just buried them. They went all in. They threw all their cards on the table and said, "We're all in." And they buried Microsoft while they had the chance. Now that the water's settled, and they're the clear, front runner from a hardware perspective, like they're just kind of sitting back, resting on their laurels because they know their software's not ready to go. Last of Us, Death Stranding, these games are not coming out next year. Like,
no, definitely not.
They're well behind.
I've been saying Death Stranding's not coming out to the PS5. I think it's gonna be a launch title. Everyone's like, no, it's coming out this year. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Oh, they already said a couple weeks ago on Twitter or something. There was a thing that said Kojima's already stated that they're actually behind schedule.
Oh, I've been saying for a while, and I've had a bunch of Sony fans tell me, "Oh no, it's coming out. It's coming out."
You're right.
Well, to be honest, I'm not surprised there. I mean, he's a bit of a perfectionist, anyways.
Exactly. And you know him; he makes huge games, so it's gonna have a million movie cutscenes. So.
No, they
Well,
should promote. They should promote that game. They should have Norman Reedus walking across America with a fetus in a jar to promote the game.
Well, you know he has that show where he rides a
Ride.
motorcycle. There you go.
okay,
Yeah.
I still
Butt
don't get
naked
it.
on a Harley.
Walking Dead.
I still don't understand the premise of that game. I have no
Nobody
idea
does.
what's going
Nobody
on.
does. Yeah.
But yet I'm intrigued. I'm so intrigued by it. Like I don't know if I'd ever play it, but I want to know, guys. I want to know what the heck is that game about?
Yeah.
Or just
And
like
here's
some
a-
gameplay mechanics.
And to use a fighting analogy, sometimes it's better off for a fighter hasn't been in the fight in a long time to just stay away from the ring and get embarrassed by not showing up than it is for that fighter to get in the ring and get knocked out early and then everybody says you're a has-been. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to pick your poison. Neither which one is going to kill you, but it's just a matter you want slow death or you want the embarrassing one, you know?
Well, I think to be honest, really Sony's eventual decision not to go to E3 was they looked at things like that. They looked at E3 last year and they said, you know what, we could save 36 million and whatever how much it cost. That's the number that I kind of heard thrown around of how much it costs. And Microsoft was actually in talks about E3, like because the generation's dying down. This is typically the end of the generation where you're not selling the consoles like you were. It goes on you're on the downward slope. So they actually, talked about it, but then obviously they came to their senses and said, let's go, and have a huge E3, or let's have E3. And now it's become, let's have a huge E3, because I do think that they sense an opportunity here. And it's not all Sony. It is Google now too. Google, for whatever reason, fires up Microsoft more than anything Sony's ever done. Like we talked earlier, I don't really think that they view Sony as a competitor. They just view them kind of like, there and they respect them. But I think that they definitely there's a little bit of a competitive nature there going on with Google. And you look at Google and you see it's stock at 1,000, 1,100. They are an unbelievable company and they are strong, and I can get it. So, but I think that in the end, this really benefits Xbox because they're going crazy. They're going crazy. Like I said, 15% last year added. Along the foot line, I remember a video came out 600 devs. That was about 800 at the end of the year, and it's going to be another 800 devs added onto studios that they have now. More studio acquisitions coming. They are going bananas, and it's a really good thing for us because in time, these games, with no games, these games are going to start to show. And I think we're going to be real impressed with some of the first-party support that Microsoft's going to have.
Sir.
Yeah. Sean Layden's on the phone with head office. How much is it going to cost us to get the New York Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra or whatever it is for this year? And they're like, hey, yo. They're like, Sean, dude, ease up, man, because we're trying to build a new console. You know that shit costs money. And by the way, you got to get yourself a new shirt, okay?
Oh, it's okay. They don't need a Philharmonic Orchestra. They just need a flute player, remember?
Ooh, yeah, you're right.
But
Now the banjo.
That was their biggest E3 with the concert. Looking back was a good thing. But they were the king of. If you remember that E3, they were kings of E3, and it's just to me, it's just crazy that they're just not showing. I feel like it's a real. A ballsy move to just do that. Like Newf says, maybe they're just resting on their laurels and they can do it, but I don't know. I would just like to see a little bit of pushback from the fans. But
they've garnered so much goodwill that they're giving them the benefit of the doubt.
They're definitely in a comfortable position.
Just for their fans, just throw a big party, a gathering, play some games. They could have did anything, and they're just not doing it. And then with Google doing what they're doing, I wonder if it's going to really hurt them. Like, just.
But we gave you Spider-Man, you peasants. Shut up.
Well, no, they're definitely taking a gamble as to how consumers are going to react to. I guess they want to see what Google is doing. Microsoft is going to have the floor at E3 pretty much. Nintendo's gonna announce some stuff. And yeah, they have this generation, Sony. They have it for PlayStation. You know, they have what basically 100 million consoles sold, and you know they've done impressively this generation. So they feel like they don't have to worry. They can be comfortable. They can take their time, and they will announce their newest iteration of the PlayStation in good time on their terms. And I have a feeling that the reason why we haven't, as some people alluded to earlier, why we haven't seen certain games and updates of certain games is because there's going to be some cross-generational games. Kojima's game's probably going to be that.
100%.
For sure.
Ghost of Tsushima as well. Like Szechuan, yeah.
It sounds like a restaurant.
Well, I mean, what do you think of the first one will hit? To me, The Last of Us 2 is definitely
Last of Us 2 will probably be the one that, yeah.
I'll put it like their last hit for the PS4, probably.
Well,
I see Last of Us 2 in holiday. I think they're gunning for holiday. I think Ghost of Tsushima holiday. And Death Stranding, I believe, is going to definitely be 20.
The game's not even out yet, but they're working on the remaster for PlayStation 5.
What did you say, Newf?
I said that Last of Us 2 isn't even out yet, but they're already
I'm reading your comments.
Yeah, Shizno said Kojima doesn't even know what Death Stranding is about. Yeah,
I'm easily distracted on the show when he
Newf is a very funny guy.
Well, he's quite the character, that's for sure. When he's not farting around.
Literally.
All right. Now, guys, moving on. A couple of weeks ago, there was, of course, the latest Inside Xbox episode, and there was some news there, like the Master Chief Collection coming to PC, and also adding Halo Reach to the collection. We have Minecraft coming to Game Pass, which, hey, that's kind of a no-brainer. Kind of wonder why it wasn't there a long time ago. There's another new controller, the Phantom White Special Edition, which that looks kind of nice, and a small demonstration of the xCloud on the show, showing off Forza Horizon running on the service. Now, guys, what did you think of that show? I know it was a couple of weeks ago, but were you guys impressed by what they did show, or were you guys a little let down, like there was different moods with regards to it?
Honestly, I heard some things about it. I missed a lot of it because I was at work.
Yeah, I didn't see it myself.
Well, I saw it. I watched the whole thing. I really wasn't expecting anything. To be honest, if I'm going to be honest and not be PC, I was aggravated at the way they showed off xCloud. Julia, who's who I like.
She got murdered. She got murdered, boy.
If you're gonna show off something like that, at least have somebody that's played the game. She's never played Forza, and it showed. And it wasn't a good showing. You had Brad Sams immediately saying, well, the input lag looks pretty bad on that, because of the way she was playing. I thought it was fake, to be honest. I thought it was.
Well, yeah, I guess the way she was like holding the controller and everything with her.
Yeah, she was like tapping it.
Yeah,
some people play like that, but she actually.
Well, yeah, I think Boogie, she plays like that, but yeah,
she plays like the.
Yeah, because she was the first one to be like, "What the hell? People play like that?" You know what I mean?
Right? No, I read that too. But I played with Al Boogie. Me and her played Forza Horizon 4. It's different than somebody who's never played a Forza game, and she's also interviewing, so it's not like she's put in a bad position. But here you have your flagship product that you're pushing out, and you're fumbling something with Microsoft.
You know what? It's just like from that Battlefront 2 stuff when that one girl was playing and she was messing up and she was cussing and everything. It just
right.
When Xbox or gaming as a whole is trying to push like the female gamers and they really don't know what they're doing, all they are is a pretty face. It's why? What for? You know what I mean? I'd rather have an ugly chick that knows what she's doing playing than some pretty dumb chick that doesn't know what the hell she's doing. You know what I mean?
That sounds like some of my exes.
well, hey, where do you fall in that category?
They weren't so pretty, but they did what they was doing.
What did you think, Newf? Did you think it was a joke with the showing of it, or were you just didn't think people made a big deal? Because people did make a big deal out of it.
People make a big deal out of everything nowadays. This is the age we live in. But I mean, yeah, it's just silliness. And but yeah, they definitely got to get more experienced people out there that at least look legitimate when they're trying to show off new tech or whatever the hell it might be. There's no doubt. I mean, hell, I already think Microsoft missed the boat when Mrs. left IGN. What's her name? Alana Pierce. They should have hired her up because she would have been an amazing spokesperson for the brand. She's very knowledgeable, but she's also pretty, but you can actually tell she's legitimate and knows what the hell she's doing. You know what I mean?
So I think gamers want to hear gamers. I think gamers want to hear. They don't want the prototypical, broadcaster, whatever, reporter, where they want a gamer. They want somebody who's on that level. And and understands these things. That's not. I'm not saying that Julie isn't a gamer. She is, but if she hasn't played Forza, obviously she's not a gamer that should be showcasing that game, especially since it's going to be a flagship product. That's on Microsoft, and that's something that with Microsoft. And I wrote a tweet about this. There was something else that went on this week that was controversial, and I don't know if we want to talk about it here, but the fact is that sometimes Microsoft does things that just to me are tone deaf and
and definitely sleep at the wheel.
Yeah, sleep at the wheel type deal. Like
well,
you're so worried about everything that you're missing the point. You have to, if you're going to show your tech, show it with Mike Ybarra playing it and talking about it.
Sometimes I feel like Microsoft should have hired a Tyrion Lannister, but instead they went and got Hodor. You know what I mean?
Well, guys, it was interesting because they used
that's sad. Don't make me sad.
They used that episode.
Hold the door.
They used that episode as like for the whole Women's Month, and they showed women at Xbox,
which is important.
No,
women gaming. Go ahead.
No, it's totally important, and you're absolutely correct. But when you're getting people to show off an important new aspect of your gaming, like xCloud, and you want competency, well, why wouldn't you get like somebody who's really involved with Xbox, like let's say Shannon Loftus to show it off, or Bonnie Ross, or
like I said, doesn't it kind of defeat the purpose when all you do is have a pretty face that's playing it? I mean, isn't that like a slap in the face to the hardworking women that are in gaming and that are truly gamers, and not like you just, like I said, a pretty face and a personality, that don't play. To me,
it should be about
if I was a female, that exactly, I would be offended. You know what I mean? That would just, it would be wrong. Because all it is
stage, and she looks like Cletus's great aunt. You know what I'm saying? You got 3 teeth and her eyes is off.
That's right. Hey, as long as she got a 3.0 debt KD, you know what I mean?
No, I mean, listen. Again, we're talking about stuff that it's just a little bit of head scratching. They had a good intentions and everything for the show. I felt the show was okay. I liked that they had some information on xCloud. I wasn't expecting it. But yeah, with that whole situation, I didn't really voice my grievances on Twitter because I just didn't want to deal with it. But, got to do better than that. You got to be.
They've done it too many times. I mean, you can go back to Crackdown. And that
exactly. And that was another
tone
deaf,
Yeah.
Lack of self-awareness. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm. But it's weird. It's weird though because they're so in touch with the community. You know, we voice our opinion on that. We really like it that they're so involved with us. But then it just, when you see stuff like this, it's almost like the people who are hearing us aren't hearing us, and you just got the marketing department being like, "Oh yeah, we know these guys. You know, let's put this," and they just sound so tone deaf to us. So it's very frustrating. But
it just seems simple. If you play games, play games. And if you're just having somebody do the show just because, or maybe the way they look, it's just bad. It's bad all around. And just and it's a service to
it's fraud.
Women that play anybody. It's a service to anybody that plays games. I don't care if you're a woman.
Well, if you're showing the game off, listen. As far as my opinion on Julia is that she's very good. I like her for Xbox Inside. She's a very good interviewer. She does that. But for her to be put in that position, you know, that's like if you're reviewing the show, that wasn't the right position. You could tell. Obviously, when she was playing it, she was uncomfortable. She was uncomfortable playing it. And then, like I said, immediately you got guys like Brad Sams and people talking about the input lag and they're talking about the product itself, the core gamers. Now listen to this, and now you put this cloud of uncertainty over your product. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, and we might learn about it at E3. We will learn about it. Xbox's latency supposedly is fantastic, and the input lag is supposedly really not noticeable. But if you have somebody that doesn't really play the game or never played the game, it's going to confuse that whole concept of input lag and latency, and that's exactly what you're trying to avoid, or you're trying to you're trying to stay off of that subject or make people feel comfortable. That was just a tone deaf moment. And honestly, like, whoever ran the show, like, reevaluate yourself in a sense, because that's just you're just tone deaf. You're not in the know there. You're just actually you're doing a disservice to your product that was supposed to be going big on E3.
Who is producing these shows is what I want to know. Who's responsible for this?
Don Matrick.
That's right.
I thought it was Grover from Sesame Street.
I don't know. I think they've done a good job in some aspects, but just that one really, I got a little bit of frustration out there. It really annoyed me. And I told people at Xbox, like, next time, show it off with the right person.
Yeah, and I really hope they learn from the recent events too. Like, they just, the past month just hasn't really been too kind to their marketing department. They've done some bonehead things, and I really hope they address that. But what was interesting too is that they omitted something that they were originally going to talk about on Inside Xbox, but they pulled it last minute. Age of Empires there's supposed to be some kind of news or an update on Age of Empires, but just didn't show, whether it be Age of Empires 4 or Age of Empires 2, the definitive edition. Fans are kind of frustrated waiting for new info on that, and they pulled it. So guys, why do you suspect what was the reason from them omitting it from the show?
I have no clue.
Maybe the Relic deal is not solidified yet.
Oh yeah, that's true, because there are rumors about supposedly Microsoft buying Relic from Sega. Who knows? Maybe that's a thing. Maybe they want to. Maybe
pretty strong rumors too. It's it's not like baseless. It's I have heard that Microsoft is very interested in getting the Age of Empires IP studio, whether they build it themselves or Relic. Where they, are in control of that, because they view that IP as extremely, important. So
absolutely, and it's still played a lot on Steam. It's a very popular game. It's a very popular franchise. Hell, I like it a lot. I think it has a lot of weight to it. It's definitely, if you look at all their IPs, it's a very popular property going back who knows how many generations now. And I don't know, it's interesting, the timing of this. So it'd be interesting to see if there will be an announcement of Relic being purchased. It's just interesting that they would pull it last minute. You know what I mean?
And we do have mouse and keyboard support now for Xbox.
Yeah.
Right now, this platform. Okay. Yeah.
Right, but it's specific to the developer to implement it themselves.
Enable it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just intriguing to me that they would pull it last minute when they were like flaunting it like way in advance. So hey, you never know where there's smoke, there's fire.
You think that it could have been Relic? Because I've talked to everyone. Me and you've talked. Relic is like the number one. When people say who's the next studio they're going to buy, everyone says Relic.
I think it makes a lot of sense, especially when they have jobs being posted about franchise leads. I think they're based in Vancouver, which is where the coalition is. I think there's a lot of pluses. Of course, they would like to own the developer, have some control, some more control over that, have them as an internal studio.
Exactly.
Delilah
There
in the
was
chat
also
says
that
maybe
rumor. There
Okay.
was also that rumor that there was a Microsoft legal brass that was seen over there and coming out of their building supposedly. So yeah, I think that
damn, that's some CIA spy shit right there.
No, I mean, I mean, if you go on Twitter and
Tim Dog on
you
rooftop,
you Clobrel is fantastic, but there's a lot of people that are really into this stuff, like and they know a lot of stuff, and it's not like they've been completely clueless. Like they've said, like Clobrel said that there was a letter of intent signed, and the first time we heard of Clobrel, or the first time I heard of Clobrel, was this guy that's saying that Obsidian signed a letter of intent, and that basically was bashed on Reset Era, and kind of like they kind of believed him, but they kind of like poo-pooed him, and then 4 months later, Jason Schreier reports that they're buying Obsidian. So
right, and it confirmed it exactly.
Right. So he's been right on
a few things.
A few things. And he's not like an arrogant guy. He says sometimes some things gets lost in translation. I've heard, and I don't know if it's the truth, but I've heard that he has some type of access into some type of Microsoft database, and he kind of sees certain things that you or I don't. He has some type of but that's just a rumor I've heard. But he, like I said, he has had his info is like 80% right. Like and some of the stuff he's been off on, but there's always reasons why it could have been off.
Well, you know how it is. Stuff falls through all the time, last minute. So it happens.
Maybe it changed. I'm looking at Delilah in the chat. She's saying maybe Microsoft just decides they want to buy Sega altogether in general.
I think a lot of people hope that, but I doubt that.
Sega supposedly. That was the whole thing. I thought this Google thing was going to be Sega. That's what I was going. Really? Yeah, because I heard they had some type of. I heard a rumor that they had some type of partnership, and that they could have been doing it. But that's why that whole thing. The whole show was
unless they're saving that for E3.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big possibility. They did say there was going to be news there, so you never know.
Yeah, you're right.
But
I don't think though Sega is one of the publishers that or developers that they're looking at. I've heard, and this goes pretty good, source, that they are looking at a Japanese studio, or they really want.
Well, that's been a rumor for a while.
Yeah, they want a studio in Japan, but if that happens, I don't know if it's that easy.
Are you guys ready for it? Are you ready for it? Here it comes. Here it comes. Segu!
I thought you were going to fart or something. Right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, no, don't do it. Don't you dare.
Oh, man.
It's my mission, to blow a fart in every mic on every podcast, right?
But
just like Terrence and Phillip.
It'd be very interesting to see what they do with Relic, though. But moving on to some more studio talk, though. Recently, in a Forza Monthly, Turten studio head Dan Rietwald announced that the studio is working on a new Forza game, and he wants the community to be involved in development, and stating that wanting to have the community early in development by having player interviews, Skype conferences, studio visits, and so on. So what do you guys think of this new openness and transparency by Turn 10. Do you think that this newfound collaboration will lead to a better Forza game with the community more involved?
Well, I think Megatron should definitely be involved in the development of the game as the lead character. And,
hey, why not?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I want to drive race around in a big ass semi. You know, so.
With a gun on it.
The gun on it, exactly.
Well, why not, right? And then you just like transform. Hey, there's something Turn 10 doing a Transformers game. Hey, you know, it might be something there. But honestly, though, I think it's great that they want like more community involvement, more people putting more input into the game, just trying to make a better game. Because I know Turn 10 did get some flack for the way Forza 7 was. I mean, I enjoyed it, but you know, there's microtrans. Well, there was loot boxes, there was certain things that people were irritated by. So it's nice that they're really open about their development process now and how fans can shape the next iteration of the game.
Well, do you think that they've run out of kind of ideas, or they want to see where the next path they can go?
How many more, like, you know, because I mean, they're pretty much doing the same thing over and over. You know, I mean, they have the same tracks. Like, really, what can they do to make it fresh and, you know, revolutionary? Obviously, you know, what's it called? Horizon, you know, is an exception to the rule, but just regular Forza, it's just, you know, it's just racing. There's no, you know, tracks or anything. I mean, there's no cross country type deal. So they have to definitely change it up a little bit. It's almost like the Call of Duty Burnout. You know, they have to switch it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure think it's getting stale now.
For a lot of people, yeah. To the hardcore fans, no. But I think for a lot of people, yeah, it's the same game for the last, you know, 3 iterations.
Well, I feel like it's kind of like on the same level as, you know, the show. Kind of like, you know, it's the same kind of game.
Yeah, they just update the rosters.
They're updating rosters now, in my opinion.
You know, the last game they added Porsche. You know, I mean, what?
Right. Like, I think they need more tracks. I think they need to go a little bit differently because, you know, now I know that they're a sim, so they want to make it like realistic.
Right. I think they need to do more than just add snow and rain and
they need to, you know, I think that one of the things that you will see is that obviously the graphics are going to be unbelievable. I think you're going to see ray tracing in the next iteration.
They gotta do something differently. They
gotta do some type of they have to add something, in my opinion, because
they need more vehicles than just cars. Like, how about some monster trucks or snowmobiles or some dirt bikes or more motorcycles? I mean, we've gotten 4 Forza Horizon games and 7 version of Forza, and there's been no motorcycle racing in there at all. You know, like those are just the subtle things.
Oh, it's just more licensing, though, right? I guess. I mean,
some of it's licensing, yeah, but some of it is like, do they want to be a simulator, or what are they gunning to be?
You want to lose that identity. I think they should stay sim, but more realism.
I think honestly, what I would do is I would freaking take a break, and then I'd make Project Gotham Racing. I don't know if they could do it, or have them and Horizon. Dev Playground do a collaboration, but that game could be unbelievable, and it's completely different and something new. I even felt like even Forza Horizon 4 for me was a little bit getting stale. Sure, it's unbelievable graphics.
Some people are saying that 3 was better than 4. I know with the latest, I mean, it wasn't as popular, I think, with the update, you know, Hot Wheels. I mean, how do you top that? But
yeah, well, I heard that they have some of their DLC that's coming is pretty impressive. So I wouldn't write that off yet. But you know, I mean, overall, you know, they've been doing, you know, it's every 2 years. I think that the year off is definitely going to help. The community, you know, involved is also a very good idea.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, you want to take notes from your fans and see what they want to implement, and you know, to add more value to the game.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've been thinking about this for a while because even though I love the Forza brand, I love the racing, it's top notch. Even when it comes to Horizon, I feel that they need to take a couple of years break from it. And while I understand what role Turn 10 Studios plays, I feel like that studio could use like a little kind of a spin-off game to just, I don't know, just kind of give the brand
give a little creativity and
kart racing.
Exactly.
Maybe?
Well, you see, that's the thing. Like, Sony's done kart racing. Obviously, Nintendo's done kart racing. I would like to see them do something different, in all honesty. Like, kart racing would be cool, but I just wish that they would do something like totally just out of the park.
I don't think.
But how do you do that with a sim? How do you do that with all that you can do is literally take, if you crash, take a bumper to a car and smack me in the face with it, or a windshield. Like,
not necessarily.
How about
that's the realism.
Not to interrupt Newf, but if they could add damage, like realistic damage, like really, impressive damage, that would for me make me happy. That would be a big reason, for to want to play it again.
I want them to do crazy stuff, just like a small spin-off game, for example, just to give them like some breathing room, some space, some creative freedom. Like, take Forza, but do like a small title that's not necessarily a car game, but stay with me here, guys. Do like an air racing game or something like that. Just something totally out of the wall, just something different, just something that's a little more creative than the usual stuff, because I feel like there's other stuff that can be explored. Like,
like the Fast and Furious. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, how about like Forza 8, and then it's called Forza Fantasy Mode. And what the Fantasy Mode does, it lets players create their own tracks. So there's a track creator and stuff like that where you can literally go in. Maybe even design your own car. Instead of taking all these license cards, you take like a bunch of kits from different stuff, and you can actually create your own car and make up your own brand.
But
something like that would be
a lot
a
of people.
idea.
A lot of people don't want to do that. I mean, that seems like a lot of work. It's like a car
but
RPG.
But again, it's in the realm of being a sim. So as long as it's realistic,
that's that idea new for two today with big things that are eye opening.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and then you could also have a mode like where you take the like a career, like a bit more of a story. You leave in the sim elements, so it's not like the one thing that sets Horizon apart is like you would never drive like some of these Lamborghinis and stuff like that over dirts and rocks and stuff like that stuff is not unrealistic. That would never happen. You know what I mean? Those cars would bottom out and you'd be grounded on the pebbles. But like Forza 8, maybe do something like where you, instead of everything being confined to a freaking just a track that's set, why don't you take it out on the freeways where you're actually racing people through like freeways and stuff with like semis on there, and there's traffic coming at you.
Now you're talking about Need for Speed.
Horizon. It sounds more like Horizon.
Well, I think it's something that could be done now. If you do it in a kind of a small scale experimental way, I think that those are good ideas.
I'm not talking about scrapping the main game in favor. What I'm at is saying like DLC or add-ons or something like that. If you don't want to play it, fine. But you still keep the sim aspect. You up the damage modeling. You still keep the fact that the car's grounded in reality. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. But you're out now racing people through like the open world, and with their tech engine, with their savvy, with their expertise. Who else could do it better than Turn 10 Studios? These fucking guys have mastered their game right now. That's almost the problem. Their games are so good, we're almost bored because they're so bloody good. It's like,
100%. 100%.
Maybe VR's not out of the realm of possibilities. I know that's the most popular thing, but
Xbox doesn't have a VR, so I mean, that's
be nice. I mean, maybe on PC,
but on the PC side of things, I mean.
Well, then that would be really a shit show.
Yeah.
With console gamers that I can force this new game.
Oh, yeah. I know. You're right. Well, I thought.
No, I understand. This is exactly what I think that Turn 10 wants. You see, we just talked for 20 minutes and we got some really good ideas. And that's the type of interaction. If they're open and they're open enough to be willing to change a little, can be a very powerful thing.
I hope they hire me and I steal all the new ideas.
Whatever, I would like it. But I like the idea of playing a little bit in traffic or on the real roads, you know, or just like some type of bonus event. Also, I kind of really would love to see the damage like upped and the graphics up to the point where if you can get damage where it's like really kind of impressive, or like, you know, definitely looks realistic or much more realistic than it is right now. To me, that's big because I was always a big fan of that. But I heard the problem is that these manufacturers, they're like, if my car breaks up, that's not a good image, so I'm not going to let you do that. And that might be the problem there with that regard because they could make a much better.
Like I think it'd be hilarious if in a sim game like that, if you actually hit like like most of these games, you hit like a brick wall, you just come to a dead stand, so you back up and go again. How about hitting the brick wall and the fucking airbag goes off? You know, like you know, you're done. You gotta call.
Or you mean like real damage? So if you wreck, it's a wrap. You're done. You know,
I mean, you literally got to put
race is over
on, and you going through that windshield.
So you really have consequences if you crash.
Yeah. Well, what if you do go out the windshield? Like, how come we can't have that too?
Got the window instead.
Wouldn't that be crazy if the camera really went through like the windshield? You know what I mean? It kind of rolled as
if that damn car's on fire.
So we got Twisted Metal Forza Edition. I see.
That would be a big deal. That would be, you know, I mean, to be a developer sometimes, to me, I feel bad for those guys because that's actually not a bad idea. Everyone knows, obviously, you can go out through the thing, but it would be a problem. There would be people who say, "Oh, that's too lifelike," or that's, you know, there's a problem.
It's too grim.
Let alone the car manufacturer and the car you're driving.
Are they the same people like seeing a pair of tits in a video game? Are they the same people? Oh my God! Take the game off the shelf.
Oh yeah. Now, moving on to something a little colorful as well. It appears as Gearbox has some news to spill over something Borderlands related. Now, Gearbox plans to reveal some new stuff at PAX next year.
Oh shit, hold on. Fucking Diego said it'd be like more realistic if you crash and you gotta run because the tags ain't red. That shit cracks me up. Yeah, hell yeah. Hey, when your registration ain't right, you gotta bounce. Hopefully the car ain't in your name.
Forza Theft
GTA, hell yeah. You gotta bounce. Muévete, puto.
Outrun Forza Edition, you got it. But yeah, so there have been some like not so subtle images relating to Borderlands being like hinted at with Gearbox, and PAX is coming up next week. Now, it's certainly possible we see Borderlands 3 announcement, or possibly this much rumored Borderlands Game of the Year edition, which was rated at the ESRB. Now, guys, what do you think of this announcement? Do you think it'll be a Game of the Year edition for the first game, like a remaster or a Borderlands 3? And would you look forward to seeing a new Borderlands game come out soon?
Why are they going to bring in old stuff? Let's, you know, everybody wants Borderlands 3. Don't, you know, yeah, if they want to have a remaster, that's fine, you know, but I don't think people really want to look back, you know, because they already have it backwards compatible. So, you know, I don't really think a remaster is a good idea right now. Focus on the future, and maybe, you know, maybe down the road you can, you know, get a Borderlands 1 reboot, or remaster. But right now, I think me as a Borderlands fan, I want to see part 3, and I don't want to look back.
Well, how long has it been since the last Borderlands come out? How long was it?
Well, it's been a good 5 years.
Well, because has it been
maybe more?
I'm just wondering, has it been enough time where maybe you can consider a remaster with the announcement of Borderlands 3? So
maybe. I mean, it's possible. There was an ESRB rating here for the first game. There is like actual like a description of it that was leaked. So it would be interesting to see if that actually does come an iteration, a remaster of the first one. I mean, I like the first one. The first one was great in my opinion.
Well, it came out in 2012, so okay.
But this, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't really care for the second one. I haven't really.
The second one was great. Oh my god, I loved it, especially when that ain't no name for a hero. And when that started, oh man, I was in.
Sing it one more time.
That's right, baby.
Was there ever a game that Gearbox made that was good?
No, but you see, that's the thing, because I had so many.
People
it was
love
like
the Alien Marines one, even though it was trash. People still loved it.
Well, what about Duke Nukem Forever? That was also panned as well.
But that was funny though. If you liked it, I enjoyed the shit out of that game. Because I like that potty humor. You know what I mean? When he was under the robot's balls, and you know what I mean, he's cracking jokes, dude. I was rolling. But that's totally me. I know Newf loved that shit. You know what I mean?
They are like my least favorite dev.
Really?
Ever? Yeah. Like they were actually considered to take over Halo 4 before they made 3, 4.
Well, I don't think that's a good idea. But if them Borderlands, dude, it's so.
What is their biggest
Borderlands? Borderlands.
Well, we had those two, those military ones. Call of Duty was Brothers in Arms. Those are fairly
big.
But listen,
they had Brothers in Arms.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I like that.
But remember, they got 4-player co-op in Borderlands, and that was really, really, really fun. They didn't come in and take over Borderlands. They actually created Borderlands. They created, yes.
Yeah, so that is their biggest game. All right, yeah.
But they've had a lot of games that were just like critically panned and like that were bug fest too. I mean, Alien Colonial Marines, Duke Nukem, and
remember the Duke Nukem game? Really, they just finished it. They didn't make the whole game. Remember, they just got the rights to it. Literally.
1 E3, and then 8 years later, it was just like an afterthought.
Well, like I said, they basically just finished it. They just pushed it out. The prior dev is the one that made the game. They just did the QA and then pushed it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Big difference between a developer though making something they're passionate about from scratch to a developer that's basically contracted out and paid to make a game, because you got to hope that everybody's on board, because if half of your staff aren't really passionate or they could give a rat's ass, they're there for the paycheck. It's like any other job. They're just putting the pieces of the puzzle together, you know what I mean? They hope for success at the end of the day, but you can see when developers are passionate about something, they'll take their time, and you can tell, like you look at a game as small as it is from MHDR with Cuphead, and you can tell immediately within the first island on that game that, my God, they put their everything into this game. They believe in what they were doing, and there's lots of big AAAs out there that feel like that too. You look at a game, to me, like Horizon Zero Dawn felt very polished from start to finish. Some people hate that game, but to me, like, there was a lot of love poured into that game. They, going from Killzone to that game was a huge stretch for that dev. You know what I mean? So that's the way it is.
No, but people also you forget when they're talking about Borderlands, the voice acting in that. Handsome really Jack, good. The dude that did Handsome Jack, he won awards for it. I mean, that dude was amazing, and like I said, the humor that they wrote into that game, both games, or actually all three, because they did the pre-sequel also. Handsome Jack was a great antagonist. I mean, you really hated that son of a bitch.
I had such bad luck with Borderlands 2. I pre-ordered it. I got it day one. I was so excited to play it. I was 10 hours into it, and I had this bug save glitch that I got. It was like corrupted, and it was like a known thing with the game. Apparently, a few other people had it, from what I understand. It was annoying. I wasn't too happy with Gearbox. I had no energy to go back after putting like so much time and effort and exploring that game. But it's interesting though, because Borderlands does scratch that whole looter shooter.
Right, exactly. That was, to me, it was like pre-Destiny. That's really got me into the grind type of a game, And when you before they nerfed everything, when you used to get the B vest and then the shotgun, I forget what it was called. Oh my God, I think every shot was like four direction shot, and like 30, 40 pellets getting in one enemy. Dude, it was so OP. It was sick. You'd go to the little raid bosses and you'd level up in like 10 seconds. It was so fun. I don't know. I just you could tell my enthusiasm, because I actually loved the game. Like I said, especially with co-op.
Borderlands, the last Borderlands was huge. I remember. I've never been. To be honest, I played it a little. I wasn't a huge fan, but it's been a very popular game. People love that game.
Yeah.
You're one of them.
Well, honestly, I think the announcement is coming for 3. I think it's long
Well,
overdue, and I think
they've
that's what we're
hinted
gonna
at it
get.
for a while. They've hinted
Yeah.
at it for at least a couple of years.
Yeah.
They know
For
their
sure.
core, fans know they wanted a Borderlands. What was the game that came with last time that it was that RPG or no, it was what's it, arena shooter that it was kind of
Battleborn.
Battleborn.
Yes.
Yes.
That
That was
That game
yeah.
was garbage.
Yeah.
That
Now, I agree with you,
Did
Timmy.
Gearbox make that one?
Yeah, they did.
See, that's
Yeah,
why,
they did.
like, I remember, like, that game at E3. I was like, this is the worst game ever.
Well, they
And-
were trying to get it
oh
on
my-
the whole, arena battle, games.
Yeah.
They were popping up, and unfortunately, they were like one of the first ones, and they did it wrong. So
Yeah.
Like it was like they were trying to make a big thing at that, like at that E3. I remember, and I was like, this game just like nobody liked. People weren't playing it on the floor. Yeah, that's funny. That's
Overwatch crushed that one pretty quick.
yeah,
Yeah.
Overwatch it crushed everything.
Oh yeah. Like, it's just interesting though, because I feel like a Borderlands, that's what people like. They really need to scratch that itch right now for a really good looter shooter. Destiny has sort of filled that role, but like people have some issues with it.
Division 2,
Anthem.
anybody?
You know what?
Anthem and Division right now are pretty tough to beat.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and we'll probably go into at the end, but this is part of my thing. Devil May Cry 5, you talk about a game, that's a video game.
It's
You guys
hard
haven't
on
played
that.
that. That game is freaking
I'm
unbelievable. Awesome.
I want
from
it. I
my
want to
opinion.
try it.
Which game?
Devil May Cry 5
Oh, Devil May Cry. Yeah, okay.
has everything that you want in a video game, in my opinion. Now, some of the story I saw a dealer saying was far-fetched. It is a far-fetched story, but
Well,
but,
you're talking about a demon hunter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So-
No, that's so realistic.
so for me, it's just falling all into place. I mean, I haven't finished it. I'm very close to on chapter 16.
Part 5 has both main antagonists, right? Or
It
protagonists.
has, it has Dante.
Yeah, Dante and the other guy, right?
The guy
Nero.
V, Nero, and V is I think his name is V, right? Is awesome. He's my favorite with the.
Well, everybody was waiting for Dante to come back, so I mean,
Yeah, he's great too in the game. But the way they gameplay, everything about that game,
Just don't blow all your red orbs, right?
well, you can buy red orbs too.
there's a dirty joke in there somewhere.
It's definitely a game that I'm sure a lot of people bought red orbs.
All right. Now, with that said, guys, we're getting towards the end of our show. So, as Tim was alluding to, what's everybody been playing? What games have we been addicted with? Newf, please start us off. What have you been playing?
I've been playing Metro Exodus the last couple of days and a little bit of Anthem sprinkled in between that, and kind of go back re-exploring some games, like jumping back and restarting a campaign again on Mario Odyssey on the Switch and a bunch of other stuff like that. So backlog is still, still up to my balls high, but we'll get there eventually.
Oh yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
Well, good thing you're not that tall, so
Good thing we're sitting down.
They picked a good game there, Newf, that's for sure. Megatron, have you had a chance to game recently since we last talked?
I have been gaming heavily on Division 2.
I am your father.
Huge shout out to Grown Women Gaming and El Boogie, because I was gifted that game, and my Xbox right now is all about the Division. And,
Division is
we played 5 hours last night, and it felt like it was an hour. I could have gone on longer if I didn't have stuff.
Graphics are unbelievable, right?
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It's fun when you're playing with your friends. Even going solo.
I don't get no invitations from you, so I'm not butthurt at all.
Oh, come on, Sal. We know you. We love you, man. After this, we'll be playing. Right after the show, I'll be jumping on. So if anyone wants to check me out, I'll be there.
Nice.
Very nice. Very nice. South, what have you been playing recently? Up to much?
Like the man Megatron was saying, that Division 2, man. A little bit of Anthem, but Division 2 is whew. I still, it's so big and a lot to take in. You know what I mean? So like just figuring out what weapons and stuff that you want to, you know, and your armor set and all that. I've never been a big, you know, RPG type person where you got to, you know, put everything together. Me, I'm just kind of basic, or I just put it on. Hey, if it's a high rating, I'll put it on. So I'm not good with, you know, pairing everything on what you're wearing to get the most effect on the enemies. But yeah, that game is so beautiful and just big, expansive. It's beautiful. I love it.
All right, very good, very good. Tim, besides Devil May Cry 5, which you are addicted with, anything else you've been playing?
Pretty much everything I've been playing has been Devil May Cry 5. Like I said, I've been playing like an hour or 2 hours a day. I'm on the last boss, so I'm trying to think if I played anything else. I'm gonna start Exodus. That's gonna be my next game. I really haven't played. I have played NBA 2K19, and it's pretty fun. I play with Jordan. I have to say the game looks unbelievable. Plays great, you know, but it's still what it was 3 years ago. You know, it's not. It is. I know it's a different engine and stuff like that, but other than that, yeah, really taken away by Devil May Cry 5. Like that's all the last couple of days have thought about. I just can't say enough about the game. Varied creatures. You know, I look at a game like this and I think of a game like Rise, and Rise had like maybe 8 guys that you fought the whole game, and it was just all different waves of the same guys. And there was a criticism I had of Rise. You know, there's no character variation,
button matching.
Yeah, this game exactly. This game, which could be considered a button masher in some aspects with the lock on and just the overall hitting the buttons. You know, the characters that they have and the designs and the art, you know, it really impressed me. So Capcom, Japanese dev, you know, really, it kind of took me back a little to when I was a kid. Like, this is the games that I used to love. Like when, you know, I just an old fashioned type game like this. And it was just unbelievable. So that's it.
Absolutely. I have been playing through Metro Exodus as well, and I've been taking my time with this game. I've just been slowly taking in everything. I just can't believe how beautiful that game is. I'm probably annoying a lot of people right now by posting so many screenshots of the game on Twitter, but I'm just amazed with how good that game plays, how beautiful it is, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've played all the Metro games before it, and it's just a lot of fun. And I suggest anybody who's into like some really cool shooters, definitely check it out. Heavy narrative. It's a really cool game, guys. As far as other games, not really. I did download on Game Pass What Remains of Edith Finch. I just haven't had a chance to boot it up yet, but I do plan on testing that out soon because I've been really looking forward to that game because I hear a lot of good things and people praising that. But yeah, that's me, guys. And that about wraps up this episode of TXR. Again, thank you to everyone watching and participating in the chat. We really do appreciate all of you for coming out to watch all this content we produce. And before leaving, please leave a like and subscribe just to keep up to date on all things related to the show. And with that said, on to the outros. Mr. Nukem, my friend, it was a pleasure having you on here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, brother.
And yeah,
thank you.
We hope to see you again at some point. Where can everybody find you?
Well, first of all, I never got to do this earlier in the show when we were talking about Stadia. So here it is now, guys. Bear with me here.
Oh, shit.
Singing.
Uh-oh.
This is the new theme song coming from
starting to feel like Crossfire. These out
for 15 hours. I want to hear this. I want to hear it.
All right. We got Stadia out the door, and you're gonna be streaming like never before.
Yeah, I like it. Stadia.
But are you guys running in place?
I'm pumping my legs now with my little leotard.
That's
the leotard.
Oh man,
pull up the warm leg
warmers. Damn, we're old.
At 80.
Damn, we're old.
I'll stream like a whore.
But anyway, guys, you know where to find me. Always in the gutter. Yes, Tuesday nights on the Gaming Episode Primal Eve. Thursdays with Saltiest Gaming on the Saltiest Gaming Podcast. And yes, I'm always a free agent for hire, ready to jump in at a moment's notice and drop some Nukem bombs like I always do. I had a lot of fun tonight, guys. Great panel, awesome topics. Hopefully, I'll be back again soon. Peace out. Have a great night.
All right. Again, thank you very much, Newf, for joining. Megatron, where can everybody find you, bud?
Under
Twitter
Tim's
again.
breath.
You'll find me on Twitter, Megatron_1975, and on Xbox Live, Megatron1. And probably again chilling tonight with Grown Women Gaming and this Division 2, man. It's about that life right now.
All right. And as Newf Nukem said in the chat, I was about to say Tim Dog, aka Darth Vader, right now. Where can everybody find you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm tired as heck. Beastfire, Tim Dog at Twitter. I'm just Beastfire Tim Dog. That's also me as Xbox Live. I'm also on Xbox Live. Same name. Just hit me up, Newf. You're a great, guest and awesome. Good luck with everything with your shows. You're awesome, dude.
I want Newf one back next Sunday. I loved it, man. You got to be back.
Stadia
it was
song.
fun.
I'm dreaming about Stadia song. What was that song though? What was that? What is that? Is that what's the
Maniac?
Gloria?
It's called Maniac. I'm gonna start singing that.
Oh my god!
Stadia. We gotta make that song now. I'm gonna DM you. We're gonna just sing.
All
it.
right, man. I'll do the whole song now. We'll do the whole words for
I'm
this.
back up singing.
The remix.
I tell you, why the name Stadia? Like, it sounds like a bloody sweetener. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
Like,
it does.
Yeah. Or
It sounds like a diabetic
Performance
drink.
enhancer.
It reminds me. It reminds me of the stupid blue sugar that causes cancer.
Stevia,
It reminds me of that, or it reminds me of pretty much that. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I do not like that name at all.
Yeah,
like
neither do I. That's immediately what I thought.
And you will have no latency in your sack tonight.
And it will not give you the diabetes.
I'm calling out of work tomorrow. I got the Stadia, man. I can't.
I never, to be honest, I never ever had. What is it? What is it called? The blue sugar?
Stevia. Sweet and low. I don't know.
Well, yeah, sweet and low. I've never had that. The
Equal.
Equal. Yeah. Because I was always afraid that I heard that stuff causes cancer. It has some type of thing. So
I just stay away from anything sugar related or sugar replacement related, just to keep safe. But anyways,
sure.
Southbound, where can everybody find you, bud?
Short and sweet. You can find me on Twitter at Southbound110. Or you can hit me up on the Xbox. And my gamer tag changed, but it's Southbound II0. That's it. Holler at your boy.
All right. Well, hey guys, again, it's been great. You can find me, Invader Gaming, on YouTube, of course, Invader Gaming, and on Twitter at Invader_1986. It's been great. Thank you, everyone, for joining. You've been awesome. And we'll hopefully catch you next week. Take care, guys.
Later.